My name is LionFire. I want to thank all of you for being here. I also want to thank all the people who've put on this show, Thunderbeat, Ryan, Alexander, and all of the wonderful people. Yes. Putting on one of these shows is a team effort for sure. So today, I'm here to talk to you about the crystal skulls and the crystal skull legends, how they have influenced our society, and also bringing in the alien connection toward the end because a lot of new things have been discovered in the last few years. I'm sure many of you are aware of that. I'd also like to introduce one of my buddies here. This is the professor. The professor is about 300 years old. He's from the Himalayas. He was carved in Mongolia. A lot of the skulls that I have are very ancient from Mongolia, if indeed we can trust how old they are. Sometimes that's very difficult to do. So the crystal skulls, people always ask me, "Oh, LionFire, have you seen all the 13 crystal skulls? Where are the 13 crystal skulls?" I have met many of those 13 crystal skulls. The thing that happened was in the 80s, this wonderful book came out about the 13 crystal skulls. This was a Cherokee legend. And somehow that captured everybody that was interested in the crystal skulls. They're all looking for the 13 crystal skulls. There are crystal skull legends around the world. What you see here, we turn off some of these lights, we see this better. You'll see a lot of different skulls from many different places. In my collection, I have crystal skulls from Africa, Mexico, Guatemala, Brazil, China, Mongolia, Peru. So crystal skulls come from everywhere, and there are many, many traditions of the crystal skulls. The one up here you see right now is a modern Brazilian quartz crystal skull. The Brazilians are some of the people who have the best crystal right now, and the carvers are very, very good. This particular skull is also a Brazilian one. This is EYU. He lives with a friend of mine who lives on the Caribbean coast in the Yucatan. I met EYU with Drunvalo Melchizedek when I was his guide. Thank you. This one's labradorite. So the crystal skulls don't always have to be made out of crystal. They can be made of many, many other things. You'll see that now they're carving beautiful things out of fossils, out of all kinds of materials. Very modern ones. This one's a jasper skull. So in the ancient times, it was the women who kept the crystal skulls. The men kept the stone skulls around the circle of women to protect them. So in our lifetimes now, skulls come in all the time. We have the skulls for the Day of the Dead, the sugar skulls. So these ancient legends around the world are more for honoring. They see the skulls as guardians, whereas many people here fear the skulls, think they're evil, or they have to do with hell's angels or God knows what else. But around the world, that is not the case. The skulls are revered and they're honored. But in Mexico, too, they have a lot of fun. A lot of people is like, oh, the crystal skulls, oh, well, they want information. They give information. They are recorders of history. And they can have fun. The professor here, he wouldn't talk to anybody for a year and a half after I got him out of Mongolia. He said, no, they're not ready for me. Now he wants to go. We open concerts, we open shows, we go to festivals, and he wants to talk to everybody. But he also wants to hear from you. Okay, in our display out here, I'm not selling anything, I'm just a feature, but I have some very, very unusual skulls from around the world. Some from Jalisco, Mexico that are alien looking, some from Mongolia that are also very alien. And we also have some carvings, etc. So some of the things that I brought, I've actually been asking other people, what they think about them, if they're real, if they're how old they are, etc. I know the information I receive, but I always like to get feedback from other people. So what you've been seeing here are some of the wonderful fun things that happen with the Day of the Dead ceremonies. So it's not always real serious stuff with the skulls because they want to have fun too. All right. And these gals, they had a great time. We were down there for the Day of the Dead a couple years ago. I also picked up a big singer. So the thing with the skulls is people will say, well, what are their names? Well, how do you know what sex they are? So although these are not hard, fast rules, generally speaking, if they're round eyes or oval eyes, they're feminine. If they're squared eyes or they have points, those are masculine. But what I've observed is that many of the skulls coming out of some of the archaeological digs in Mongolia have both round and squared features. So these skulls are coming into our lives with a balance of the masculine and feminine energies, which I think is highly appropriate for the times that we're in right now. Other skull honorings are by the Aztec and the Maya dancers. They revere the skulls of the ancestors, they feed them, they bring them flowers and offerings all the time. Some of these skulls, like this one, was a mace head, and that was an Aztec piece. This is in one of the museums down there, and they can be very ominous in a way, but some can be very, very fun as well. The crystal skulls do speak to people. This one is a rattle from the Tula Toltec area north of Mexico City. And on top of it here is a woman in masculine warrior dress. So this is a rattle. And if you can imagine 2,000 people rattling these rattles at a ceremony, that's what they did. And then they would put them in a pile as an offering at one of the bases of their pyramids. This is one of the Maya skull priests at Chichen Itza in the Maya Yucatan. This is a huge jade skull, which has a Quetzalcoatl feathered serpent carved on its cranium. Several years ago, I was the guide for Drunvalo Melchizedek when he was doing his Yucatan tour. And he wrote a book about that. It's called The Serpent of Light. And in there, he talks about some of the things we did with the ceremonies and the crystal skulls. During that trip, I was fortunate enough to be able to save the 3,000-year-old pink quartz skull of the Maya land from being shattered. After that happened, skulls started coming into my life continually. Then I was asked if I wanted to be on a collector's list for the archaeological digs in Mongolia, and that's how I got to bring in a lot of the skulls from the Orient. So what you're seeing here are some of the Maya temple carvings. This is the skull that I saved from being shattered during Drunvalo's tour. And that's a long story. If you want to read it, get the Serpent of Light, because I don't have enough time tonight. This is a skull from the Temple of the Skulls in Palenque. This is one of the temple features on one of the royal tombs. And skulls you see also can become headdresses, and they used them for many, many things. besides just honoring the ancestors. There are those who say that some of the Maya can put their soul into a crystal skull. And here you have the elongated skulls and the elongated heads. Some of these are from Peru. They found some of the elongated heads in Idaho and Montana among the mound builders. Many of them come from exactly Peru. Some of these skulls have actually been dated, and the DNA has been run so that they have found out scientifically that these are not completely human. And here's a variety of them. There aren't that many because a lot of them were destroyed by the churches in the past, or they went to the Smithsonian Institute and they went to the basement, never to be seen again. It's amazing that we still have a few of them that can be tested. The skulls come from everywhere. The skulls have come from every age. Right now, with the skull's reemergence, there are reasons for that. We need them. We need their energy. We need their information. This is the Paris skull. This is an alien skull, Indiana Jones. So in our modern times, there is a lot of influence and a lot of interest in the crystal skulls, whether it's Hollywood or whether it's archaeology, because in some ways they're all connected, even though it may seem like they're not that much. This is a Tibetan ceremonial tool with the skull. So there are a lot of really spiritual implications about what the skulls are and what they do. Tibetan mosaic skulls, in some countries, they will even take the skull itself, the human skull, and do the mosaics all over the skull. And there are many of those in the London Museum of Natural History. And so they're all over the place. Some of them have very interesting looks. Some will not look human at all. They're very alien. There's the professor, this guy right here. Also, I would invite all of you, I'll be here for the whole time tonight and tomorrow. Please come and visit because we let you hold them. We don't charge you to have a time with the skulls. So please take advantage of that. Please come talk to us. The professor, I've done a lot of fun things with him with photography and the different types of color filters. So you can see how it brings out a lot of the different features. I've worked with a lot of archaeologists on some of the sun daggers and things, and I've used these filters to bring out images that you can't be seen by the naked eye. And the archaeologists going, whoa, can't believe that there's this much stuff behind there. The Maya skull that I saved has the grandmother in front and has the lovers in back, and she protects the lovers. So this is a group of my skulls during a ceremony. This is the first one that I got out of Mongolia, which it did come with papers. And there are many people say, well, they're not real. Some people say they are real. I trust the people that I got them from. So now he's cleaned up. Don't take him very often anymore. He's potentially Paleolithic and about 6000 BC, if indeed that's true. It's really hard to tell because you can't date stone, okay? You can only date organic material. This guy's real fun because he used to be green jade and he's been sitting on iron, so he's actually turned red. And jade is one of the stones that will do that. You can take a green jade and turn it red by exposing it to iron for thousands of years. This is an obsidian skull. And you say, wait a minute, it's red. Well, there is red obsidian that comes from Asia, and that is the only place it comes from. You can see many other colors from around the world: blue, black, mahogany, striped, all kinds of stuff, but only Asia has the red obsidian. So I've taken several different pictures so you can see how the stone has been molded and it with the volcanic exercise that goes through all of the vulcanization to create the obsidian, which floats up on top. This skull belongs to my wife. She really loves this one. We use a lot of the skulls in healings that we do too. I live up in Four Corners in Cortez, Colorado by Mesa Verde. And we have a shamanic institute there. And we use the skulls in healings. We use the skulls in ceremony. We also allow people to hold them, to draw them, paint them, you know, because they want to be loved, they want to be talked to, etc. And as you can see, some of the photography can get pretty wild when you're seeing these skulls, kind of like what Stonehenge did to my camera a few years ago. It all went astral and pink and weird. So this is a very special one. Now I'm going to talk to you a bit about totems here, because totem is a very shamanic thing. But the skulls, a lot of them will have totems on them. This particular one is a bat. Interesting that the way they carved it, all of the dark part is the bat and the green part is the skull. This has a mica shimmer on it. Now this skull is from what they call the legendary period, and the legendary period over there was from 0 to 2000 BC. 0 is when everything changed. Matriarchy went to patriarchy. Jesus came in, Buddha came in, Kuan Yin came in. So that was the legendary period right before that. Once you get to 0, then you start having the dynastic periods and all of that. So I have two different ones here with the bats. The bats are a guardian of the twilight realms. Bats to them in Asia are a symbol of wealth, a symbol of financial security. And this is the second bat. This one is doesn't have the feature that the other one did, but it was still a bat. This one, what you see on top of here, that's a silkworm. These ancient people in Mongolia were semi-nomadic. They were a pre-rice culture. They are the people who tamed the horse, invented horseshoes. They were pre-rice. They invented silk weaving, and they were a matriarchal society. They also moved around from the Gulf of Korea to the steppes of the Himalayas in Tibet. So you see a lot of ancient carvings. Many of these have glyphs on them. And part of what the archaeologists were looking for were those glyphs so that they can translate some of the languages. And when we get to ones like this, you see that beautiful glyph there. Well, to me, that's a great glyph, but it also looks like a stargate. And so there are a lot of interpretations. Everybody can have their own interpretation for sure. Here's one with a bird totem. This is a golden jade. Now realize too that a lot of these jade skulls, and you're like, jade, really? Okay, these people picked up rocks on the surface. They did not mine. Therefore, they weren't getting into the really pretty green and yellow and beautiful jades like we know today. So this is junk jade. You also notice he has an ear. Very few of them have ears, and the ones that do are some of the most ancient ones. This is one I have in my collection, and he doesn't actually stand up like that. He only lays down and looks up at the sky. I've never quite figured out what he might be because he looks like a tool. Okay, so also realize these were weavers, so sometimes that happens. This is another Mongolian skull. Some of these are quartz, some of these are calcite, and this is from a different region than the previous ones you were seeing. This one is a very primitive skull, very unusual. Also realize that these people were the ones who invented stone carving and core drilling. All right, this is my great grandma. You notice she has an open mouth. They call that a singer because they tend to speak and sing more clearly than the other ones. Now, see, she has a green jade, but she'd been sitting on iron tool or an iron weapon. And so she's been, for thousands of years, changing color. So she's changing from the green jade to red jade because she's been sitting on iron, and jade will absorb that color. So you can see her there again, the green jade turning red. Here's one, a double skull. Another kind of totem, not an animal totem, but a skull totem. I only saw a couple of these in the years that I was bringing these over from Mongolia. This one finally went to a keeper. Many of the skulls that I brought in found their keepers. And it's very interesting that the skulls pick their keeper. You don't. This is another very primitive one. Now we're starting to get into the more alien looking ones. This one's called a screamer. I have seen screamers from Central America. I've also seen screamers from China and Mongolia. So there's a couple different screamers. I tend to kind of avoid them. I don't particularly like people screaming at me, but I do like the ones who speak and sing. Here's a very interesting one where you have this feature here is a dragon's egg. You have the dragon's egg, the dragon men. You also have the sea dragons that are born out of those dragon skulls. And it has a goddess. Sometimes the skulls will come in pairs. You also notice the eyes and how different the eyes are. Okay, so you have masculine features on this one, you have more feminine features on this one, yet it has points at the bottom. That's why I'm saying most of these skulls came in with both sexes in balance, because we are now coming into a time of unity, and that's what those skulls are. Here's a modern one. You know, the ancient aliens, modern aliens, okay? Now we get to the real goods. These are some of the Jalisco artifacts. A friend of mine down there, Mark Russell, has been working with the natives in Jalisco in the tombs and in the caves. And these are some of the pieces that have been coming out of that. I have several of these pieces here with me at this event. So please come by and check them out. Like I said, I'm not trying to sell anybody anything. I'm here to let you have this experience. So notice too that you'll see a lot of moon signs, the elongated heads, the big eyes. And these have been coming out of Jalisco now for quite a few years. And my buddy down there, he sent me probably 5,000 pictures of this material. It's just incredible. And I wrestled with it for a long time, going, what? How? I can't even imagine how anybody could put this stuff together. I didn't think it was real at first. And I looked at it and looked at it and I thought, wait a minute, you know, as much as I know about this stuff, I don't even know if I could put some of these things together. Because on some of these, there are Egyptian glyphs, Zapotec, Mixtec, Maya, Aztec, Egyptian, and it's all mixed up. And it's all coming out of Mexico. It's like, what? It was very hard to believe. But I finally figured out that, you know what? There's too much stuff here to be faked. Someone would have to have an incredible knowledge to be able to reproduce this stuff. Therefore, I don't believe it's being reproduced. Having said that, since this stuff has come out, there are now reproductions of this material out to be sold. This is one with a feathered serpent. Here's one with an astronaut floating around Saturn. A lot of these are pendants. I have a big pendant. It's like, whoa, that's a pendant. It's so big and so heavy. Which makes you think, well, perhaps some of these people were giants, because a lot of the elongated skull people were giants. This is a ceremonial dagger. It has lots of different iconography all over it. And then these are pieces that are coming off of the cave walls. Okay. So here you have an astronaut. You have like the shamanic figures offering up lingam stones. You have flying saucers, UFOs. You have a variety of different alien-looking creatures, and then you have a lot of this glyphics, which we're attempting to figure out right now. Mark has gone to Egypt and Germany. He's been working with a lot of the epigraphers so that we can potentially decipher some of this. Here's one with an Egyptian goddess, and there are two slides of this one. You also see there's the calligraphy on the bottom, the Horus eye. So that's what I mean by this stuff's coming out of Mexico, but yet these images are from around the world. So it's hard to explain how this happens, okay? But they're beautiful, beautiful pieces. This is just exquisite with the winged figures. I have a couple of them on display. It's hard to say anything about these because they're so outrageous. They're so awesome. I have a winged figure like this guy. You see, this is a pendant also. I'm wearing one right now, although you can't see it because I had to cover it up while I was drumming. But those are the glyphics. Now this is the one I have here now. This is one of the largest of the alien skulls I've ever seen. He has about 5 or 6 different aliens carved all around him. Plus he has this huge back that is nothing but the calligraphy and the glyphics. And like I said, those are things that we are attempting to decipher right now. And I only have a few more here, so we're kind of wrapping it up. But I also wanted to show you that these are the sides. This is the bottom of that skull. And so you see he's holding a skull very similar. And he, too, that one, has the same type of skull head, incredibly elongated. You see these other images. So here's some of the glyphics on the back. They look like pictographs. Some may look like Egyptian, some may look Oriental. And this is part of what we're studying to see if we can understand any of this glyphic writing. At this point, we haven't really figured out that much of it. There are a few things. Now you can see how big he is, and he's out there on our display, so I invite you to come check him out. I take these skulls around to several different places around the world, and we do events. And here is a variety of the pieces that have come out of Jalisco. You can see some are inlaid with different other gemstones. So at this point, thank you for all your time, your patience. We've kind of gone off schedule, but I thank you very much for your attention.